days compared to 15 days. Although a 31% improvement doesn't seem like a knockout 100%, it is a very important proof of concept, because what it has proven is that a drug can block this virus.
Optimism in the Oval Office with the president present. We should hasten to point out from Dr. Fauci there today about this new study on the drug Remdesivir. The Washington Post reporting it this way. The drug must be given intravenously over 5 to 10 days, and the trial results only apply to hospitalized patients. Those are two very important details for everybody to remember. Today, Dr. Fauci compared this new treatment to an early drug in the fight he was a big part of against AIDS.
When I was looking at this data with our team the other night, it was reminiscent of 34 years ago in 1986 when we were struggling for drugs for HIV. And we did the first randomized placebo-controlled trial with AZT, which turned out to give an effect that was modest. But that was not the end game, because building on that every year after, we did better and better.
Back with us again tonight, Dr. Erwin Redlener, a pediatrics physician, clinical professor with the School of Public Health at Columbia University, also happens to be the director of Columbia's National Center for Disaster Preparedness with an expertise in pandemic influenza. And Dr. Anne Remoyne back with us, professor of epidemiology at UCLA, where she runs the Center for Global and Immigrant Health, specializing in emergent infectious diseases. Good evening and welcome to you both. Dr. Redlener, I'll begin with you. Remdesivir, which we hasten to point out has not been approved for this use. We also hasten to point out those comments were in the vicinity of the president. So these days, no matter who the expert is, it can often color the wording used. And I wish we didn't have to point that out, but we do. With that, what do you make of this development?
Yeah, hi, Brian. So I'm a big fan of Dr. Fauci's. I never have envied his position, having to make his statements in front of the President of the United States, particularly this President of the United States. And he's right to be optimistic and hopeful, but we're far from being convinced. And the conditions that you mentioned, or he mentioned, that this is going to have to be, it's being given to patients intravenously who are very, very sick. We're seeing some improvement in symptoms and maybe a shortening of their hospital stays. But the fact of the matter is we have a long way to go before this gets fully approved and it's more widely available to be used. That said, I don't think we should detract from the point that it is positive news, but there's a lot more that needs to come about before we could say we found anything resembling a cure, Brian.
Anne Remoyne, I want to play for you something from your mayor, Mayor Garcetti in Los Angeles, just tonight. We'll talk about it on the other side.
We all know this is a silent killer. It moves quietly through the population. And why it's so important for people who don't show symptoms to get tested is because oftentimes they're the super spreaders. We believe together that now we can offer to everybody living in the county of Los Angeles, starting tomorrow, with or without symptoms, we can offer you a test, get you those results back in a day, 2, maximum these days is 3.
Anne Remoyne, that is huge news, a huge population of people living within L.A. County. Is this, do you hope, a model for the rest of the country?
Absolutely, Brian. This is terrific news. What we really need is to have widespread testing. And this has been the thing that we have been looking for and hoping for a long time. And it's important to test not just those individuals who are symptomatic, but those who are asymptomatic. As you know, this is a big issue that I spend a lot of time thinking about, asymptomatic infection. And, you know, we know that there is a large proportion of the population who is asymptomatically infected, and we need to be able to catch these people as we can early, given the opportunity to isolate from others and to be able to ensure that they're not spreading. So this is a really big development. Great news.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.
Well, for more medical insight on the drug, I want to bring in Dr. Mark McClellan. He's a professor of business, medicine, and policy at Duke University. He's also a former FDA commissioner. Dr. McClellan, thank you for joining us. You know, Dr. Fauci says that Remdesivir will set a new standard of care for coronavirus treatment. What more do we know about this particular drug? How exactly does it work?
It works by slowing down the reproduction of the virus, by interfering its spread within the body. And we know from the study that was just reported early, this is a well-designed, big study from the National Institutes of Health, that it does seem to have a significant effect on improving recovery time and a trend towards an effect even on mortality. So it's not a slam dunk. It's not the only therapy we need by any means, but it is a first important step in improving the treatments or creating some treatments that are actually effective in COVID-19.
We've heard so much about this drug. Wall Street has weighed in on this, optimistic about it as well. Is there anything else beyond Remdesivir that other people are looking at that you believe could have some potential impact?
I think this is just the first step in what will be an ongoing process of hopefully rapid progress on treatments. There are other antiviral treatments that I think we'll learn more about as Remdesivir starts to be used, and I hope it does become available with some additional evidence being collected on how patients are doing with it in different settings as soon as possible. In addition to the other antivirals that might work in a way similar to Remdesivir, there also are treatments that can help potentially help the most severely ill patients from the very strong immune reactions that seem to be a component of the severe illness in patients who require hospitalization and ventilators. And there also are treatments based on the immune responses to the virus, monoclonal antibodies, monoclonal antibodies that can help with preventing the spread of the virus. All of these treatments could potentially be available ahead of a vaccine. Still months to go, still a lot of hard work to do the clinical testing, but we're starting down that road right now.
So for the broader population, you mentioned the vaccine, that's really the ultimate goal. It could take as much as 18 months to get one, which could be almost 2 years by the time it's out. Is there a realistic timetable about the process of getting a vaccine approved? Is there such thing as fast-tracking a vaccine?
Well, there's only so much that can be fast-tracked. First, you have to design a vaccine and have a good degree of confidence that it's really going to work, that it's really going to create immunity. Then you have to do extra testing because a vaccine, unlike a treatment for someone ill or severely ill with COVID-19, is going to be given to a lot of relatively healthy people, at least if we want to get broad immunity in our population. And on top of that, we also need to take the time for people to develop that immune response. That can take several months or longer to study. So it's going to be months before the clinical testing of these vaccines are done to a degree that we can have confidence in them. Where we can save an awful lot of time is in making sure those studies are done quickly and in also manufacturing large amounts of these vaccines at the same time the studies are ongoing. We may not actually use them, but we'll have them ready to go. That can save many months of development time.
That's interesting to hear you say that. It's remarkable. We've really got the whole world looking at this potential vaccine, and still there are so many hurdles. I want to thank you very much, Dr. Mark McClellan, for joining us and for your time.
Good to be with you.
For doctors and nurses on the front lines, a new weapon in the fight against COVID-19, an antiviral medication proven effective in clinical trials. Dr. Fauci announced the breakthrough at the White House.
The data shows that Remdesivir has a clear-cut, significant positive effect in diminishing the time to recovery. This is really quite important.
The drug is Remdesivir, made by Gilead Sciences. It comes in IV form, administered to the sickest COVID patients. The drug trials involved nearly 1,100 people worldwide. The preliminary NIH data showed Remdesivir cut the recovery time in the hospital from 15 to 11 days. The mortality rate also dropped, though not dramatically, from 11.6% for those on the placebo to 8% for those on Remdesivir.
I narrowly avoided a ventilator.
Arnold Wegg, himself a doctor, was given Remdesivir in the ICU along with an anti-inflammatory drug, Actemra. He says he quickly began recovering.
My personal experience with the Remdesivir and the
Actemra make me feel very strongly that it should be used.
This is Remdesivir versus placebo for one of our patients.
Emory University Hospital in Atlanta ran the largest of the NIH clinical trials.
Remdesivir will get many of our patients home to their families more rapidly and with less side effects.
Remdesivir was originally designed to treat Ebola patients, but for 7 years, researchers at Vanderbilt University have been convinced it could save lives in a new coronavirus pandemic.
I'm very encouraged and I'm very optimistic, particularly if we think of using this in patients as they have earlier disease and are progressing.
Sickest you've ever been.
Sickest I've ever been, yes.
In Philadelphia, Mike Dewan was on a ventilator for 17 days. Doctors gave him Remdesivir as a last resort.
Because he was so sick. And they were kind of thinking, we have nothing to lose. If it can help him, great. Because he was, needing something.
Tonight, the president is calling on the FDA to quickly approve Remdesivir as a frontline go-to treatment. It can only be given in IV form in a hospital. The NIH findings are so far not peer-reviewed, but Gilead is ramping up production of the drug.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.